J-Mac, breaking news. Howie Roseman makes a move in the 2022 NFL Draft. Significant capital being traded with the Saints. I'll kick it right to you for your first reaction on the details of the trade. I know there was a lot into it. 16, 19, 194 goes to the Saints. We get 18, 101, 237, a 2023 first, a 2024 second. So quite the haul for the Eagles. What's your first impression, Johnny Mac?
My first impression is the Eagles obviously wanted sort of optionality, as we call it, in 2023, more options. And the Saints are obviously, I don't know what they're doing. You know, they're trying to turn things around quickly. They've been in salary cap hell for a couple years as far as that goes. And, you know, it's I'm surprised that Howie was able to get this done in the way he got it done. And this is what we talk about with Howie Roseman all the time. When it comes to valuation, I talk about it with Jody McDonald all the time. Guy never gets it wrong. He understands what assets are worth, and he gets as much. You know, he wrings the sponge to get everything out of every available asset. At some point, you got to turn it into players. You got to turn it into successful players. But that's number one. Number two is this is a clear shutting of the door. Forget about quarterback this year. Jalen Hurts is the quarterback. They're not going to draft a quarterback. This is about getting that safety net moved into 2023. And if Jalen Hurts has a poor season, you decide, okay, he's not the guy. You have 2 first-round picks. You have an extra second-round pick. Maybe you can go up and get in a position to get a quarterback in a draft that's supposed to have better quarterbacks. So that's part of it. The third is he never wanted to take. We've been talking about that since day one. The odds he was going to take all 3 of these first-round picks were very, very small. Very, very small, just from a salary cap standpoint. You don't want that on your books. You don't want that weight on your team. The question is, you know, was he going to trade up? Was he going to trade down? Was he going to trade out? Trade out was obviously the best case scenario, the first choice. And he was able to get it done early and kick one of those first round picks to 2023, which was, as I said, best case scenario for Howie Roseman.
To me, it seems like what you said there at the end, how he got this done early. I think, and I don't know this to be true, but it seems to me that that was a big part of this. I know we've heard a lot about we want to move back, but it takes 2 to tango. There's a lot of teams with multiple first-round picks. There's a lot of speculation that teams want to move around in this draft. So how much do you think that weighed into his thought? I mean, this is a deal that I don't think you could pass up no matter when it comes your way. But is his ability to get to the table fast the reason that he got a deal done like this?
You can only speculate from the New Orleans perspective, because to me it's the more interesting part. I mean, the Eagles got the better of this deal on paper. I mean, there's no questioning that. So, you know, that's for people in New Orleans. That's for Mickey Loomis to try to explain. That, you know, they're going to have 3 picks in the top 50, and hopefully, I guess their thought process is going to be that first round pick next year is going to be at the end of the draft. I don't know. A lot of people look at the Saints and say that's going to be the case. From the Eagles' perspective, as I said, they don't have to pay 3 first round contracts. They get an extra one next year to either go get a quarterback or build around the quarterback. If Jalen Hurts, you know, if you want to take the positive spin and he takes the job and he runs with it, so you have that extra safety net in. But to me, it's more of why were the Saints willing to do this? I don't think they're in a position where they can say we're going to be in the back end of the draft. So I think this is, in a lot of ways, this is going to look like Howie's deal last year with Miami when he got the extra first round pick. And Miami thought they were going to be a playoff team, and they were close, but they weren't. And ultimately, he was able to swing things in that direction. Similar situation here with the Saints. I think maybe I often talk about Xander. The most difficult thing in sports is self evaluation. Take a look in the mirror and truly judge yourself honestly and correctly. I don't think Mickey Loomis did that with the Saints today.
Yeah, this is a tough deal to look at if you're a Saints fan. But if you're an Eagle fan, I mean, you got to feel pretty good. Now, maybe if you're in the crowd of you wanted to make the move now, it certainly seems like they pushed that timeline out on. I mean, I know everyone was like, well, you have 3 first round picks that only come so often. Perhaps they'll use them to jump up and get a guy they like. I think you said it best in the beginning. It signals that they're going with Jalen Hurts this year, and they're giving him the opportunity to take the step forward, and they've positioned themselves again next year to potentially be in a position where they could make a move for a quarterback that they like in the draft, or have multiple assets to go and trade for one if there's more in the market again.
Yeah, and remember they got a second round pick as well. So they're going to have 2 first round picks. They're going to have a second round pick. So in theory, they have some assets to
And I
move
don't know
up.
how
Now,
good is that the Saints pick in the first round next year?
yeah, yeah.
Because I don't know
So,
how good of a football team they're going to be.
well, that's the point. I mean, from the Saints' perspective, they think they're going to be a good team, and it's not going to be. It's going to be in the 20s, and then it's not as hard to move that type of pick. If it's top 10, it's going to look really bad for the
Right.
Saints. It's probably going to be somewhere in the middle of that, and then you have to say, how are the Eagles going to finish? Where's their own pick going to be? So when you start talking about Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, and if they're at the top of the draft, well, if you have picks 21 and 22, that's not going to help you go up and get one of those
Right.
guys, even if you add the second round pick on top of it. So a lot of this depends on,
Where the
how the
chips
Eagles
fall.
and the Saints play next season. And obviously Jalen Hurts and his ability to develop is going to have a big part of that. If he plays poorly, well, maybe the Eagles are in a position to go up at the top of the draft. If the Saints have a terrible season, maybe they are. But it makes sense from the Eagles' perspective in that they never, as I said, they never wanted to pay the 3 first round picks, the money that's going to allocate. People talk about their cap space. I always talk about effective cap space, which is something over the cap uses. You have to budget. It's not about you can look at over the cap today and say the Eagles have 19, $20 million. Well, they got to pay 3 first round picks before today.
Right.
You got to budget that in, which that alone is over 8 million. So you cut that right off. Now you have one less top tier money pick to deal with. You'll still should be able to get 2 potential starters if you do it right. But, the Eagles always win these trades. Bottom line, you got to get players at some point. You got to match the evaluation up with the valuation. The Eagles are great with the valuation. Now it's time to be great with the evaluation.
So the picks with the trade with the assets is the good thing. Now you have to hit on the players. John, let's get into the 2022 draft. They get rid of 16. They get rid of 19. They're now sitting at 15 and 18. Quarterback, I'm with you. I would wipe that out of the equation. I don't think that's even a possibility. Where you think they're looking, wide receiver, defensive line is what seems to be speculated around a lot around the city. We're at 15 and 18 now. What do you think the Eagles are looking at? Do you still think they might move up? Do you still think they might move back? I know how with Howie, nothing's off the table, but what's your thought on the 2022 draft with the shuffled board?
Well, there's always a shot that you can, move up a little bit like they did last year. You moved up a couple spots
Couple
from
spots.
12 to 10. I wouldn't think there would be this huge splashy move because then you have to give up too many assets and then you kind of lose what you just accomplished here. Similarly, trading down, maybe if there's 3 or 4 players you have similar grades at 18, for instance, maybe you're willing to trade down a couple spots and pick up something else, and you're still going to get one of those players you have similar grades on. Um, But I think it's much more likely that the Eagles stay put now, and just take two players at 15 and 18. And if you're looking for positions, I mean, there's a couple defensive line, as you mentioned, and it could be edge rusher, it could be interior as well, because they badly need a defensive tackle, especially a zero or a one technique. The problem there is there aren't a lot of them.
I know in your
Jordan
mock
Davis
you
is
had
probably
Jordan
not going to
Davis
be
going
there.
before, so you took the other guy. I forget what school the guy you took.
Yeah, the kid from UConn.
Right, he fits that mold,
And by the way, people mocking me now. He's in everybody's first round
he's a good player.
mocks. Yeah, he's a real good
Yeah,
player. And people in the NFL think more high. We're talking about Travis Jones. Think more highly of him uh, than it seems a lot of people outside the league. So I do think defensive line, cornerback, and I'd put an outside chance at safety if Kyle Hamilton, for some reason, because he didn't run well at his pro day, if for some reason he starts to fall. Um, but I doubt that.
yeah,
I
you're
can't
starting to hear those
imagine.
rumors, but I don't know how much stock you can put into it.
Yeah, I can't imagine he falls that far. So I think most likely defensive line and cornerback. I would think of those two picks, I'd say 90. I'm at 90% they're getting a corner at some point, because for two reasons. One, they need one. And two, there's probably going to be one available. So, with edge rushers, I don't know if one's going to be available. Um, you know, Safety, there's only one player, probably not going to be available. You can make an argument that the kid from Michigan might be available at 18, but I'm not sure the Eagles would want to make that sort of leap. I know everyone will talk about linebacker because they love talking about linebacker, but the
Yes.
Eagles signed Kazir White for a reason. TJ Edwards they like better than most people. I don't see that happening. And now we can officially take quarterback off the table. So I don't think you have to worry about quarterback at all. And that's the first time really all this off season. You always leave 1%, right? 99%.
Right.
That's where I am. 99%. They're not taking a quarterback.
Well, everything you just hit on, everything we just discussed, it all pointed to the defensive side of the football. There's people scratching their
Yeah,
head
wide
on.
receiver I should have mentioned as well.
Well, that's my next point. Everyone speculate, oh, trade pick 19 and something else, and Rager for Metcalf, or do whatever you got to do to go get
Rager.
Metcalf, or whatever,
Rager.
whatever the mocks are. We now got rid of two of those picks. We're down to 15 and 18. You have talked about how you do not want them to go back into the draft for a young wide receiver. We need some veteran talent, veteran players in that room. I guess you could argue Zach Pascal is that guy. What are they going to do at wide receiver? I think this kind of removes that ability to trade one of those picks. Maybe if you wanted to get A.J. Brown, maybe he doesn't cost a first-round pick, or a DK Metcalf or someone like that.
Well, look, I've been pretty consistent. I want a veteran player in that room. When there were three picks, and look, the Eagles have tried to get a veteran player. They knew
Right.
that
That's
was
been
the
pretty.
plan. They tried to trade for Calvin Ridley first and foremost. They wanted to trade for Robert Woods. He wouldn't consider them. Christian Kirk got too much money. Allen Robinson picked the Super Bowl champions. But they had interest in all those players, and that tells you, okay, we know we needed an upgrade at this particular position. We wanted to be a veteran player. Now, ultimately, Zach Pascal ended up being sort of the safety net in that aspect, somebody Nick Sirianni's comfortable with, but that's not what the Eagles want. That's not what they were looking for. That's not a significant upgrade from a talent perspective. In fact, you can argue it's a downgrade from just a purely talent perspective. So they still need a veteran receiver. Devontae Parker was the latest to go. I know Jody McDonald on Birds 365 was really upset that they didn't go after Devontae Parker.
I wasn't a big fan of him personally.
I don't have a problem with it at all. I said in a vacuum, I would say no. no way I'm giving up. I'm giving up a third round pick in 2023 for Devontae Parker, especially when I got to pay him over $5 million a year for 2 years. I don't have a problem in a vacuum, but you're the Eagles. You lost out
Right.
on those 4 receivers. You need to get a better receiver. Now people are talking about AJ Brown. They're talking about DK Metcalf. Well, if you trade for those players, you're going to have to give them a whole heck of a lot of money. And you see what the going rate is at wide receiver now. Until the Eagles show that they're willing to do that at that
Well, could you
particular
point to
position.
Alshon Jeffrey? I guess they
Well,
brought
also,
him on a prove it deal first.
yeah, and we're in a whole different stratosphere. I
Yeah,
mean, Alshon,
that's true.
his first year was a prove it deal, but it was pretty significant money for a prove it deal. So at the time, it was I think $9 million, which is pretty significant
Right,
for
which is
1
significant
year.
money.
And then he got the extension, which was even more. But we're in a whole different landscape, and guys like Brown and Metcalf, they're going to want 20 million plus. Plus, you have to give up what you got to give up to get them.
Right.
So you have to give up significant assets. But boy, they need a veteran receiver. And if they can't get a veteran receiver, then wide receivers and play in the draft. But I don't want Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith needs a mentor. He doesn't need to mentor somebody else.
Right.
And if they draft a first round kid again, he's all of a sudden mentoring a rookie instead of what you wanted. And that's, I think Robert Woods, I said he would have been the perfect addition for this team because he's a great blocker. He is a phenomenal route runner. He knows how to play, and he could have taught not only Devontae Smith, but how to further be a professional because he's a great player, but he could have really helped people like Quez Watkins. But they weren't able to get him.
John, I got to circle it back. In the beginning, with we talk about trading for one of these bigger receivers, and I know you have to weigh what you got to give up to land the guy. Then you're going to have to give the guy the large contract. But like you said in the beginning, at some point, you got to get players. You can't just trade draft picks around every year. So at what point are the Eagles, is Howie Roseman going to walk the walk, if you will, and bring in players? If it takes a first-round pick to get A.J. Brown and $20 million a year, do it. If you say you believe in the quarterback, if you want to give the young man a chance to succeed in the NFL versus the greatest offenses in the league, you got to do it. And on the flip side, if your quarterback can't get him the football, at least you know that next year without a shadow of a doubt, versus if you don't go get the guy. Hurts has this similar season to this year. You have half the fan base is in the same pickle where it's like half want a new quarterback and half don't think you had enough for Jalen Hurts to even show what he can do. So why not just go all in, get the guy, pay the guy, and then you learn more about your football team in the end anyway, and you still have the picks next year.
Well,
eventually they got to get off walking the rope.
Yeah, it's kind of a Sixers mentality, old
Right.
Sixers mentality of let's kick the can down the road. Look, I said it this morning. I said, a lot of people say I'm not fair to Jalen Hurts, which I don't agree with, but nonetheless, I said I'm fair to Jalen Hurts. Who's not fair is the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not fair to Jalen Hurts because they're the ones who, as of right now, are saying, okay, we're going to trot you out there, claim we're going to build up around you. And the build up around you is Zach Pascal because they haven't added a running back. They haven't added a tight end. They haven't added an offensive lineman.
Nothing on offense.
They added Zach Pascal. That doesn't sound – now, Howie correctly will say, talent gathering season, as he calls it, is not over. And he's right. And they're going to add significant pieces in the draft. I mean, even 101, that's a third-round pick. That's a third-round compensatory pick. So they're going to have an opportunity to add different players, and they're going to add some significant players to this team. But as far as guys who are ready to hit the ground running and help Jalen Hurts and help you evaluate what Jalen Hurts is, well, that was Robert Woods. That was Calvin Ridley. That was Allen Robinson. That was Kristen Kirk. It's not Zach Pascal. And it's not some kid, whoever you like, whether it's Alave, whether it's Drake London, um, Traylon Burks. They're rookies.
They got to acclimate.
Jim Schwartz used to call it startup costs. Everybody's got startup costs. Everybody. And none of those guys, you go back to last year, none of these guys, whoever you like at wide receiver, he's not the finished product Devontae Smith is. So, no, they haven't helped Jalen Hurts, and they're not going to help him unless they get a veteran receiver. And don't give me Zach Pascal, because that's not the veteran receiver you're looking for.
Howie, if you're listening to this, please just go get one of them. John, how much, I got to ask, John, how much we talked about the assets you'd have to give up, the contract you'd have to shell out to a receiver like that. Does the dead cap, I know it doesn't get talked about a lot, but I always look at that. This is the second year in a row with $35 million plus a dead cap. Is that going into Howie's thought process maybe on a deal like that? I know that's probably not there next year. Does that does that go into his thought process at all, or how does that go?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, contract, salary cap is all a part of everything. And general managers have to think about more than 1 year at a time. They have to think about not just 2022, but how 2023, how 2024 are going to look. So, yeah, it always comes into it. And that's every player at every position. That's one of the reasons they wanted out, not just to get that extra first round pick in a year where people think it's all about the quarterbacks and the quarterbacks are going to be better. That's part of it. But part of it, and I would argue a bigger part of it, is they don't want those 3 first round picks on the salary cap this year. They didn't want to pay those 3 first round picks. And understandably so, because it's really cost effective. It's really cost prohibitive. And then if you really want to look forward, year 5, now you're hopeful all of these players turn into good players and you're picking up their 5th-year option. If you're not able to work out extensions, then you get really, really spiked hard on 3 different players
those options
by
are
year
big
5.
Options.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's always part of the play. And that's the stuff Howie is really, really good at. He's really good at that kind of stuff. And, this is Philadelphia, man. This is modern Philadelphia. We had Sam Hinkie with the Sixers, and all of his fans would say he wins every trade. He wins every trade because they're talking about assets. They're talking about valuation of assets. We can say the same thing about Howie Roseman. He wins every stinking trade. At some point, though, you got to turn those wins of trades into players.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear. I mean, I'm just reading it again. Eagles send 16-19, 194 in the 6th round to the Saints in exchange for 18, 101, 237, a 2023 first, and a 2024 second. That's quite the haul. So the Eagles clearly won.
Howie can't step in New Orleans today because he's wanted for grand larceny.
I mean, that's a fleece in the asset department. Now we got to turn it into players and football players that translates to wins on the football field. All right, J-Mac, a pretty good trade overall. How do you grade it? Give it a grade for the people.
Well, I just said, in the moment, that's all we know, right? These are all assets. These are all just slots. They won. I mean, this is an A. This is a policing. This is highway robbery. This is whatever you want to describe it. This is what Mickey Loomis has got to explain to people in New Orleans what the heck he's doing. So right now, as we speak today, Xander, yeah, I mean, he's wanted. He's wanted in the state of Louisiana. Howie Roseman.
It's an A+ right now, but John, if in 2 years we have a bunch of Jalen Ragers and Jay Jaws and Andre Dillards, it'll be a tough sledding. But that's step 2, right? Step 1 is done. The asset, that was clearly a good trade. Now you got to get the players. All right, J-Mac, that'll do it. Big trade for the Eagles, making some moves in the first round. Football 24/7 with John McMullen. I'm Xander Kraus. See you next time, everyone.